Okay. Start with a quote tonight. This is by Cleon Scouse. If the hounds of hell are not barking at your works, you are not doing good, nor are you acting out the will of the Lord. If you seek to please your colleagues, your mentors, and any other worldly source, while the hounds of hell lie dormant before you, you can be assured that your works are of no consequence. Those who seek the praise of men, while avoiding any persecution or offense of the devil, should know that they will not be receiving the approbation or commendation of a prophet of God, nor will they ever receive any such honor from the Lord for their passive, worldly, compliant works. I pray that in my own life I may hear the howling often, that I may let sleeping dogs lie still, unless, of course, they are the hounds of hell. Then may I awaken them to a ferocious wailing and gnashing of teeth. And Cleon Scouson's life is testimony to that. Mm-hmm. Okay, how many ways do you know to preserve meat besides jerking it?
Salt? Or is that
You can can it, you can freeze dry it.
You can salt it, you can can it, you can freeze dry it. Those are the big three. Jerky's another one.
Uh-huh.
You can smoke it.
Yeah, that's another one.
Okay.
Make sure you use filters when you smoke, because it's.
Yeah, just don't vape the stuff, okay?
Jerky vape flavor.
Vape jerky, especially THC. No, never mind. Okay, enough of that. Okay.
Jerky thoughts when the sun comes up, can't cure that itch with a coffee cup. So I head out slow, bare feet and dew, tracking something tender like I always do. Skin it, string it, slice it just right, jerky on the line by the end of the night. Don't touch my jerky, it's dry and sweet. Hung it myself in the summer heat. You steal my snacks across the line and end up hanging next to mine. Jerky's great, but I still want crunch, salt in my nuts for a midday lunch. Lured me a goose with a hunk of bread, fried it in bacon till the flames turn red. Berries on bark and coffee in tin. Might live alone, but I still dine with sin. Don't touch my jerky, it's dry and sweet. Hung it myself in the summer heat. You steal my snacks across the line and end up hanging next to mine. It ain't just the cooking that makes me stay, it's the way I feel at the break of day. No phones, no rules, just the man I am, with dirt on my face and meat in the pain. I don't do much, but I do it slow, and I chew on jerky while the sun sets aglow. Don't touch my jerky, it's dry and sweet. Hung it myself in the summer heat. Night rolls in and I breathe just fine. One more bite, then the world is mine.
Where do we get this? He finds the crazy stuff.
Jerky thoughts when the sun
Well, we have a case of the demon flying fox.
All right. So why would you want to make your own? Go to all that trouble. Heck, it's so easy, and a single man can do this.
John,
What?
try and talk a little louder. So
What?
And what?
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 Talk a little louder. What?
Okay, I didn't bring my mic, so if you want me to shift over to the other side,
No,
I'm going to
no,
have
no.
to turn this table upside down.
No, it's so the recording can get you on the recording.
Who's recording? Okay. I think you can probably hear me. Okay, if you can hear me, your camera can hear me. So Why do you make your own beef jerky? Well, it's a lot cheaper than buying it. Even if you get really clean meat from a place like VDOT, you can beat retail price on this. You have your own control over the ingredients. You don't have all that nasty stuff they put in it. If you want to put BHA, BHT, and TBHQ in it, that's your business. If you want to use red dye number 40, which has just been taken off the market, that's your business. By the way, it takes a brave man to make a fool of himself in public. Okay. This is a very high protein, low fat thing, and I almost forgot. Sorry, all you people who are watching, but you don't get samples. Everybody else here who bothered to attend gets samples.
Yay. Yeah, that him, where's ours?
This,
Where's our?
yeah, the pigs in Manti that I taught Tuesday ate half of it. You get to eat the other half. Okay, there are few foods more nutrient dense than meat, and particularly beef. And that's very true. I'm sorry, all you veggies out there. Too bad. You can store it long term, but if you do, I recommend an oxygen absorber. Does everybody know what an oxygen absorber is? Okay. They come in 100, 200, and 300 cc, and sometimes you can get 500 cc if you want to store a whole bunch in a number 10 can.
CC meaning,
Cubic centimeter.
so we're not talking little packets.
The little packets contain powdered iron, and as soon as you cut the bag of packets open, they begin to rust, pull in oxygen, and that's why they're called oxygen absorbers. Okay, and that's what keeps the fat from turning nasty. Okay, it's ready to go. Thank you. Thanks, Max. I appreciate that.
That's one CC.
Pass it around again.
Okay.
Okay. It's simple to make, like I said. You can make jerky out of anything. I recommend not making it out of oily fish because oils and fats go bad, and you really have to protect against that. But even so, even if you put 2 oxygen packs in, they still might go bad. Okay? And personal preference, I do not like anything that's been chopped and formed. I think that's cheating, and it's not jerky. So, commercial jerky can be toxic. I found this out and I thought, oh boy, I better make my own. That was sometime back in the 90s when I got that old American Harvest food dryer. It was the cheapest one in the store. It requires, it allows you to change the temperature on it. Make sure if you get one, you can change it to 120 degrees because that's about what you need. And make sure it's got a drip pan in the bottom. If it doesn't have a drip pan in the bottom, make one out of aluminum foil. Okay, it's MSG, BHA, and BHT, but TBHQ is very sneaky and very toxic. They spray it on the inside of the wrapper so they don't have to declare it in the ingredients. And they do this with cereal boxes and boxes of chips and bags of chips and crackers and stuff. Synthetic flavors, synthetic everything, and of course, they've all got sugar. Okay? Prepared commercial meat products always come from beef that have been injected with mRNA vaccines. And that goes back to 2017, before COVID was a thing. They've been doing this. Grass-fed cows,
There should be a seminar with an expert talking about mRNA in the next little while. TPR, I think, had it in their newsletter.
I could get into what exactly mRNA is, but does take up a lot of time. It's not good. It's a combination of snake venoms. Grass-fed cows, anything that's been labeled grass-fed has been fed on hay for the 2 weeks before it was slaughtered. That's all that's required. 2 weeks on hay. All the other time, it's been fattened up using corn and loads of water, fattened up for the slaughter. And all commercial jerky, as I mentioned before, is mechanically pre-chewed, and then the stuff has been put out in molds to make it look like jerky, and no, it's not jerky. So where do you go to find your clean beef? Now, I know about Christensen meat, and if you want to buy half a cow, that's fine, but I can't afford half a cow and I have no place to store it. But these places will sell you clean meat, and Sunny Side Up Pastures will deliver, and VDOT, you can just go pick it up. VDOT has certain cuts when they have them, and then they don't have them when they don't have them, so you gotta call ahead and say, hey, do you have this?
Their beef is really good.
Their beef is really good. It's more expensive than Manti Market, though.
Are they across from,
Next to the post office.
okay, Maverick, across from Maverick?
Yeah, across from the Maverick, yeah. That's them. I highly recommend them. That's where I get all my stuff. I haven't tried Sunny Side Up yet.
They're nice people too.
Yeah. I know the guy because I turned him on to bone broth soup. If you've never made bone broth soup, save all your bones, boil them down for 2 days in a 6-quart crock pot, and then strain everything, and then you've got the best soup base under the sun. The very best soup base. And you can add barley or lentils or vegetables or whatever's in your crisper drawer.
You can actually use any bone you want. You can use lamb, you can use beef, you can use pork, you can use chicken, you can use fish. With a fish, though, it's probably better 24 hours than 48.
Linda's the expert. You can talk to her offline about bone broth soup.
I got some
There's one caveat. I was a chemical officer in the Army and a civil defense volunteer for 30 years. If they've been exposed to some kind of a nuclear fallout, anything like that, it's been said that the meat is okay, just not the organs and the bones, because that's where any
Interesting.
of the bad stuff could concentrate in the
Yeah.
animal. So don't use the bones of something that might have been contaminated by some kind of fallout situation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Strontium to your body. Strontium 90 looks just like calcium. And your body will incorporate it into your bones, and then you've got bone marrow issues and cancer and what have you. Okay, what do you need to jerkify something? You need an air dryer capable of being set to 120 degrees. Make sure it has a drip pan, and I will show you what a drip pan looks like. Complete with drips.
So it's the jerky, not jerky, the leather part of the tray that lets you make fruit leather on it, right?
Fruit leather is something different.
Right, but they use that same.
Yeah,
inside
they
disc.
they use something like this, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a drip pan. And as you can tell, I've made jerky out of many different colored things. Okay, you'll need Morton Tender Quick. This is what I use. You don't have to use Morton Tender Quick, but I use it. This is the way I make beef jerky, and it's the quickest, easiest way. There are some people who make beef jerky using fancy dips and things like that. You stick them in the fridge overnight, and then you lay them out on a grill, and that's fine. That's the way they do it. This is the way I do it. Morton Tender Quick, the mix there is 90% salt, but if you use only salt on your meat, it's going to come out very brackish. I know because I've made every mistake a guy can make, and I've been kicked out of the kitchen several times.
Not by me.
No, by my first wife. She, my first attempt, I stuck a toothpick through the pieces and I hung it between the racks in the oven, and I lined the bottom with aluminum foil. And I turned the oven on to 120 degrees. My wife said, "How long is the oven going to be out of commission?" And I said, 24 hours. Okay, I kicked out of the kitchen. Another time, I used shilling smoke flavor. And as soon as I opened that little bottle, I knew I was in trouble. Don't ever buy shilling smoke flavor, or you'll get kicked out of the kitchen. Because it stinks up the entire house. Okay, this is what you need if you're going to preserve meat. There are people who know how to soak meat in a solution of Morton Tender Quick, which, by the way, it looks just like salt. The sugar, the 10% sugar, takes away some of the brackishness. The purpose of the sodium nitrate is it takes the place of oxygen in the red blood cells, and it keeps the meat red. That's all sodium nitrate does. And then eventually it turns into sodium nitrite, which is another lesson in chemistry, which I'm not going to get into.
So if I
That's
don't
a
have
good,
my
that's a
sodium
good
nitrate,
preservative, but you can only have it in little tiny doses.
Yeah, well, your body can expel it, but large doses,
Yep.
you may have a problem with.
Yep.
are you,
Only a little bit.
are you saying that without it, it'll just be a little more brown? It'll locks it up?
Yeah, yeah. You can make this mix yourself, but I'm lazy, and so I buy it. Now, you can't get it in local grocery stores, and you may not be able to get it even in Utah Valley, because it's kind of a niche product, but you can get anything on Amazon, and that's where I got this bag. You don't need very much for a very large portion, but what you need, you just pour out in a bowl there. You can see I poured it out in a bowl. And now the best meat is you can get eye of round. Hey, you can use London broil or top round. That's what I like because it doesn't have much fat in it. And fat is your enemy. What you want to do is, as soon as you get your meat, you remove all the fat and gristle, because fat is going to turn nasty.
He's gonna call me pig.
And gristle is not gonna preserve well. It'll get all chewy and you'll have to spit it out. Okay? You slice it 1/4 inch thick. Now VDOT, I bought some jerky meat, quote unquote jerky meat from VDOT, and they cut it an 1/8 inch thick, which is what you've got here. This is 1/8 inch thick. And it was it jerkified very quickly, quicker than I wanted it to. The 1/4 inch thick, generally I let it go for about 24 hours. You check it about every 4 to 6 hours to see if it's to your taste. 1/8 inch thick meat takes about 8 hours, or maybe a little bit less, depending on how dry or you want it. You lay it out on a plate, not on your wife's counter, kicked out of kitchen again. Okay? And it's a bloody mess. Okay? It's gonna be a bloody mess, so do this in the sink, not on your wife's counter. You wash each piece separately. This is a critical step. Wash each piece separately under cold water. Squeeze it dry like a washcloth and put it on a clean plate or a bowl. It's probably best if you don't use stainless steel, because unless you want a metallic taste. Now the blood, if you leave the blood in, it will give the meat a metallic taste, which most people don't like. I know because I don't like it. Okay.
So when you say squeeze it dry, you mean wring it out?
Just squeeze it like that, like a washcloth. Just squeeze it like you would a washcloth. Okay. Get all the water out that you possibly can. And if it needs another trip under the cold water to get more blood out, if you see your hands getting bloody, just stick it under there and get all the blood out, because blood is a bad thing for jerky. Okay, then you take your bowl of Tender Quick and you wet your thumb and forefinger and stick it in there, and you take your piece of jerky. Where's that bag?
I don't have it.
You take your piece of jerky and you just grind it in. Make sure that every bit of it has a little bit of that Tender Quick ground into it. Okay? And then you lay it on your drying rack. Okay?
John, the Tender Quick, how is that different than salt?
Let me back up.
Good question.
You already answered.
There you go. There's your recipe.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And I'm lazy, so I buy it in the bag. Buy it off Amazon. Okay? Lay it on the dryer trays. Make sure the pieces don't touch, because where they touch, they may not dry. Now they're gonna shrink when they dry. So you can get them real close, but make sure they don't actually touch. When you're done with that bowl of Tender Quick, you've probably poured out too much, hopefully. Throw it out, because it'll have little boogers of meat in it and drips of bloody water and stuff like that. So you just take your bowl, toss it, because you don't want it back in the bag. I'm cheap, but not that cheap. Okay? And this is what it looks like when it's in there just all wet and ready to go. You check it every 4 to 6 hours. Make sure that everything's done the way you like it, because it's for you, or in this case for Manti and Spring City. And I made it the way I like it, and if you don't like it, make it your way. It's very easy. All you need is that dryer and a bag of Tender Quick. Okay? Keep the dog away from that food dryer.
So your drip fan
Because-
underneath is to catch all those little
because-
things.
Because there's a fan on the bottom and it blows up through this hole in the top and your dog is gonna smell it.
Our cats seem to go after it.
The cats like it too, yeah, but we don't allow them up on the low counter.
Can you explain how much salt you're choosing for your personal taste? How much Tender Quick are you leaving on? You're patting it, and then,
You wet your thumb and forefinger, okay, stick it in the bowl, then you grind it in. It's gritty stuff, you just grind it in, every piece, and make sure that the whole piece is covered with Tender Quick. You go conservative on it because you don't want too much on it. But,
so you're not dipping your fingers a second or third time for a piece of meat that size?
sometimes a second time if it's a big piece. Some of those are pretty big pieces. You can see the ones in front, they're pretty big pieces there, and I had to dip a couple of times.
So you're not even using a full pinch of salt for both sides
No,
of that one
just-
piece, just a little?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Okay. I had to make many mistakes, and I have. Now, here's a guy who knows how to make fancy beef jerky.
When it comes to meat snacks, beef jerky is one of my favorite. It's perfect in between meals, great as a snack, great on a road trip, really anytime is always a good time for beef jerky. The only downside is that it's pretty expensive when you buy it at the store. So today I'm gonna show you my super easy method of doing a delicious beef jerky at home. For our protein, we're gonna be using this beautiful beef eye of round. As you can see, it is nice and lean. You can see which way the grain goes. There's a little bit of fat on the underside. We're gonna trim all this off, but otherwise,
There's probably 50 ways to make beef jerky on YouTube. So if you're really interested and you don't like my way of doing it, there's plenty of other ways.
It is a very nice and lean looking piece of beef. This beef eye of round costs $6.99 a pound. It's a little bit under 2 pounds and cost me just about $12. This is going to be a whole lot of jerky for not a lot of money. I like using leaner cuts to make my beef jerky, which is why I'm using this eye of round, but you can use other cuts as well. Flank steak works great. Any sort of a roasty, larger cut of beef can be made into beef jerky. To start, I'm going to trim off some of this excess fat that's on the underside. We don't really need any of this in our jerky. You can also leave the fat on. I just like my jerky to be more on the lean side, so I like to trim all this off.
You'll never get all the fat out, but most of it will end up in the drip pan. Some of it, you just will never get the whole thing out, which is why you want to store it, if you're going to store it, with an oxygen absorber in the Ziploc. Does somebody have a question?
Do you ever stop and flip it at some point?
No, yeah.
You should probably be using an aluminized Mylar bag and not the Ziplocs. The Ziplocs are moisture permeable.
Okay, yes, that's correct.
It's slow, but they are moisture permeable.
That's correct.
Yeah, but mice will go right through both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So what we like to do is put it in a number 10 can. Or put it in a glass jar, although you can't fit that much in a glass jar, and glass has a way of breaking. All right, continuing.
We're also going to remove the silver skin that you can see on the beef. This will never render down and it's going to be super chewy and tough once it's cooked. So just take your knife, insert right underneath and slowly cut this silver skin off to expose the meat. Our beef is trimmed up and ready to be sliced up. Now there's 2 different ways you can make your beef jerky, and a lot of this will depend on your personal preference. If you like your beef jerky to be more tender or more chewy. If you like your beef jerky to be more tender once it's done, you're gonna have to slice across the grain, which as you can see, the grain goes up and down. So you have to cut across the grain. And if you like your beef jerky to be more on the chewy side, you have to slice with the grain. We're gonna do it both ways with this roll so you guys can see how it turns out. So as you can see, the grain goes up and down this way. So I'm gonna slice this guy right down the middle in half. and we have two nice pieces. We're gonna start with this half first, and we're gonna cut this across the grain. As you can see, the grains go this way, so I'm gonna take my knife and cut this way. So when the beef jerky is done, it'll be much easier to pull apart and it will seem much more tender. Take your knife and slice about 1/4 inch thick slices, making sure they're nice and even so they cook and finish at the same time. You can also pop this in the freezer for about 30 minutes beforehand to firm it up. It will make the slicing much easier. And this is what you're going for, sliced across the grain. You can see the strands. This is the thickness that you're looking for. This is going to be super tender and delicious. And on this piece, we're gonna go for a more chewy bite. So again, the grain goes this way, so we're gonna slice along the grain so it's not as tender once it's done. Going for the same thickness again, about 1/4 inch or so. And this is what this piece looks like. So again, you can see the grains going up and down a long way, so it's not going to be as tender as the other piece, but still super tasty. Here's a side-by-side comparison. So here's the one that's cut across the grain. You can see all the individual grains, and here's the one that's sliced with the grain. You can see the long strands going up and down. The way that you cut and prepare your beef really only affects the final tenderness and mouthfeel of the jerky. The flavor is going to be the same regardless, so try both ways and see which one you like. Next up, we're gonna prep our marinade. Now there's a bunch of different ways you can do your beef jerky depending on the flavors that you're looking for. You can go sweet, savory, spicy, but today we're gonna do one of my favorites, which is teriyaki. To start, we're gonna go with 1 bottle of teriyaki sauce. You use whichever one you like. We'll add some black pepper, smoked paprika, onion powder.
When you get your teriyaki sauce, make sure you read the ingredients, because some of them are loaded with high fructose corn syrup and all sorts of stuff. Okay. Someone suggested Tuesday that I use aminos, and make sure I don't go too hard on the aminos, because the flavor will get very intense instead of teriyaki.
Minced onions, crushed red peppers, honey, and we'll whisk all this together. What I learned from making jerky in the past is that if you use just the base marinade, so for example, if I did just the teriyaki sauce, the jerky tends to come out kind of bland because it's gonna be cooking or dehydrating for a long time on the grill. So that's why I like to add a whole bunch of other spices to help elevate those flavors. I'm gonna put my cut up beef into a Ziploc bag. Notice that we're putting both cuts in the same bag. It really doesn't matter. You'll still be able to tell the difference after it's cooked. And we're gonna pour our entire marinade right into the bag. Make sure to get all these seasonings, bits and pieces from the bottom in there as well. Squeeze as much air as you can out of the bag. We're gonna seal it up, and now just massage everything in to make sure every piece is nicely coated. I'm gonna put the Ziploc bag in the fridge for at least a couple hours. Ideally, you wanna prep this the day before so it can marinate for at least 24 hours. The longer it sits in this marinade, the more flavorful our jerky is gonna be. I'm gonna be doing my jerky on my big green egg at the low indirect heat. You can also do the same recipe
those
in
big
your
green
oven if
eggs
you
are
choose to
very
do so. Follow the same
expensive
temperature
units.
and time guidelines, and it should come out just the same. As always, I've got a couple
Notice
starter
he's got
cubes
two
in
of
my
them.
charcoal. I'm gonna put in the plate setter next, so this is gonna create an indirect cooking zone, and my grate will go right on top. The key to making good beef jerky is to cook it at that low temperature. We're not really trying to cook the meat as we are trying to dehydrate it or pull all the moisture out. So I'm gonna bring my big green egg up to about 180, definitely no more than 200 degrees before I put the meat on. If you're doing this at home, keep your oven at that low temperature or use a dehydrator for the best results. Our jerky's been in a marinade for a couple hours, so I'm gonna take it out of the bag, put it on a wire rack, and get it ready for the grill. And just look how beautiful this beef looks. It took on this beautiful color. You can see the seasonings, the crushed red pepper. This jerky is going to be delicious. I'm gonna lay my beef jerky on the wire rack. This is gonna help with two things. One, it's gonna provide a little better airflow on the grill, and two, it'll make it easier and quicker to get this on and off the grill. When you're laying these guys down, make sure there's at least a little bit of space between each piece so that smoke can penetrate all the sides. Our wire rack is full, and this beef jerky is ready to hit the grill. Big green egg is cruising just shy of 200 degrees. We're gonna put our wire rack on with the beef, close this guy up, and we'll let him cook. Our beef jerky's been on for about 4 hours, and it is done. And this is what it looks like done. You can keep this on the grill or in your oven longer if you like to dry it out some more, but this is how I like my jerky. As you can see, it is still nice and pliable, but before we eat it, there's one last step that we have to do. I'm gonna put my jerky in a Ziploc bag, seal it up, and let it sit for about 15-20 minutes to kind of steam a little bit and to get even more tender. This is a crucial step, and I guarantee you, your jerky is gonna be much tastier if you do this last step. Seal it up, and we'll let it hang out. Our jerky has rested, so first up, let's compare the piece cut with the grain and the one cut against the grain. This is the piece cut against the grain. You can see the muscle fibers inside, and just look how tender it is. Breaks super easily, and you can see the inside nicely dried out. This is as good as it gets. And here is the piece that we cut with the grain, so you can see the muscle fibers going across. So if we bend it just like we did the other one, you can see it's much harder to pull apart because we have to pull the muscle fibers apart. This piece is much easier to pull off, similar to a string cheese, because we're separating the muscle fibers lengthwise. So again, nicely dehydrated inside, nice color, just a different texture and mouthfeel compared to the other piece. Let's give it a try. This is the piece that we cut across the grain for a much more tender bite. That's really good. The marinade, super flavorful, has that nice little kick from using the crushed red pepper, a little sweetness from the teriyaki sauce, a little smokiness from cooking it on the grill. The inside isn't completely dried out. I don't like my jerky to be super dry where it just kind of cracks and break apart. Put it more dried out jerky, just keep it on a little bit longer. You really can't overcook it, it'll just kind of eventually dry out way too much. This right here is as good as I like it. And now for the piece that we cut with the grain. So again, the long muscle fibers. So this should be much more chewy. And it is. Same flavor because we use the same marinade, just a different mouthfeel. If you like your jerky to have that more chew, more mouthfeel to it, cut it with the grain and you should be happy. That's gonna be it for this video. Hopefully you guys liked it. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.
So you only did it 4 hours, huh?
What, 200?
Well, he did
These are the
it
higher
at just
temperature.
under 200 degrees. This is his way of doing it. This is my way of doing it. If you're gonna make jerky, be prepared to blow a couple of batches because it, you know, it takes a while to figure out what your particular air dryer needs. And this is why you check it every 4 to 6 hours or 2 to 4 hours or whatever, to see how it's coming. So, back in Manti, I got a lot of cat calls and my presentation went on for an hour and 15 minutes. It's now been 45 minutes. So if anybody has any questions.
Well, what would they say and or ask if it were creative?
Cat calls. Rude stuff. Of course, if they do that, I have to be rude back.
So
Okay.
do you use Tender Quick for the flavor or because?
He used something else.
I mean, he just used.
Tender
like
Quick doesn't
He
leave
marinated it.
much
he just
flavor.
marinated
Just
with the seasoning.
yeah,
so
he
now-
marinated his. I didn't marinate mine because I'm lazy.
So this, we sampled tonight, was it marinated or just the salt?
No, it's just Tender Quick.
Okay.
If you want to do marinade, that video's on YouTube.
Mm.
What was the name of the guy?
Just type in how to make beef jerky.
Well, like I said, I might have 100 videos.
Yeah. And you'll run across it. Okay, now I got one more that I found. How many of you know people who have stored a ton of wheat but have no way of eating it, or don't know why they stored it, or they're using it as legs on a table, and don't know that they have to get a grinder for it to make it useful? This was a problem when I went to BYU. People knew they had to store food, but they were students, they were on a budget, and so they got these buckets of wheat. And people would ask, well, what are you gonna do with it? Well, I don't know, the prophet told me to store it. Okay, so why? This is the Socratic method. A person makes a statement, you ask him a question about the statement, he makes another statement, you ask another question about his answer to this statement, and you keep going until one of you reaches a point where the original statement starts to fall apart. Okay, so they get a grinder. It cost them $90. And I said, have you tried it out? No. So they try it out, and the axle in the grinder breaks because it's a piece of junk. So you get a good grinder. Linda, what's our grinder? Country Living?
Country living, I think.
Country Living grain mill costs like $600, $700 or something, but it will never break. And if you have one of those, it's great. But, so what do you do it?
Is that the kind that has that, V-wheel on it?
It's just like a Mexican meat grinder or a corn grinder, but it has plates that are specifically for grains. There are grain plates, there are bean plates, there are peanut plates, and you got to get the right plates for it.
But,
I
I mean,
don't-
the handle itself, some of them have just a crank handle, but
Yeah, it's a
some of them
crank
have
handle.
a wheel with a V-notch, like the old pulleys in an older engine before they went to serpentine. They had the
We
V-belt
don't.
on it.
It just has a crank.
Okay.
Anyway, ours just has a crank. There might be stuff that you can get for it, but anyway, this is what you can do with your ground flour and water. This is the simplest thing you can possibly do to make your grain edible other than boiling it. And if you're not used to boiled wheat berries, it'll stop you up like a cork. You know, if you're used to instant microwave dinners and Twinkies, you know, your gut's not gonna like this stuff. So.
I'm going to show you how to make the oldest bread in the world. It's called flatbread. There's evidence of flatbread dating back 14,000 years. This is the perfect survival or prepper bread because it only requires flour and water. Hunters and gatherers would cook with it on smooth, hot rocks. To start with, you need 2 parts flour, 1 part water. In my case, I'm using 1 cup of all-purpose flour and a half a cup of warm water, about 90 degrees. You'll be adding more flour later. Now, when you mix it, it's going to seem like it doesn't have enough water, but it really does. So just keep working with it. Make sure all the flour is hydrated. Now let it rest for 30 minutes. You don't have to, it just makes it a little easier to work with. And about 5 to 10 minutes before you plan to shape the dough, put a frying pan on the stove, preheat it to about medium high. Go ahead and flour your surface.
The reason you let it rest is so that the water can soak into the dough grains.
Surface. It's now time to shape the dough. Just pull a little bit of the dough apart and form it into a ball. Now, as you form it into a ball, it's going to be a little sticky, but that's normal. You can always add flour to make it a little less sticky. Now, once you formed it into a ball, flatten it out with your hand, and then use your rolling pin to continue flattening it out into the shape you want. Now, after rolling out the dough to the shape you want, go ahead and place it into your pan. No oil, just straight into the pan. Now the first step is to seal both sides. So you want to place it down, let it sit for about 15 to 30 seconds, and then flip it and do 15 to 30 seconds on the other side. And then flip it back. And now what you're going to do is look for bubbles. And as bubbles start to form, just go ahead and press them down with a spatula. speed up the video a little bit here. All right, that's how you make flatbread. Very easy. This is a prepping type channel, so that's the main purpose is to show how to make a survival type bread. But I've been making these for quite a while. My kids like them just for snacks. You put butter on it, garlic butter, beef chunks, tuna, make little mini pizzas out of them. They're really tasty and super easy to make. Okay, so if you found the video useful, I appreciate it if you could share it, like it, subscribe.
Share, like, subscribe. Okay, I think we've seen enough.
So for dinner tonight, we made tortillas, but we used fresh ground grain wheat. I think my wife probably used a hard white wheat, and you know, and they're great. We make tortillas all the time.
Do you have
What-
hard or crispy
what-
to yours though?
No.
No fat in yours?
Back when I was younger and less sane, I used to do Civil War reenacting. I still got all my stuff, but I don't do it anymore because I'm too old and I don't fit. Anyway, I used to make the flatbread that the Civil War people made, the little square biscuits.
Hardtack or whatever?
Yeah. A hardtack is about 3/8 of an inch thick. And if you do this 3/8 of an inch thick, I guarantee you can build a house with those bricks.
Bricks, real bricks.
If you do it as flatbread, it's different. Also, if you do it with fresh ground wheat, it's much more nutritious than using plain flour. Linda's the expert there. She actually bakes bread using sourdough start and fresh ground.
My mentor is Kyle.
That's right. Kyle has a video on how to do that on YouTube.
And what's your channel name again?
Mine?
You have channel?
It's just under Dr. Kyle Christensen.
Just a comment, if you are using sourdough start, keep in mind that sourdough start is comprised of bacteria. Chlorine kills bacteria. Yes, 20 guesses and 14 first 19 don't count. What happens when you put chlorinated water in your sourdough start?
Kill it.
Yeah.
Sourdough start is very picky. It's a symbiotic combination of bacteria and yeast, and the yeast will eat what you give them and give off alcohol and CO2. And the alcohol looks a lot like sugar to the bacteria, so they eat it and they produce lactic acid, which is the brown stuff that sometimes you find on top of a sourdough start, which means that you haven't maintained it and it's going bad. But if you feed it with chlorinated water, you'll kill the bacteria and the yeast will survive, and it'll turn really bad. It'll smell bad. It won't make good bread. Anyway, that's the chemistry of it. And Linda knows that because she makes bread all the time. Kyle makes bread all the time. So anyway, this is a very simple way to do it without worrying about keeping yeast in the fridge, without keeping sourdough start, I should say, in the fridge. Now, if you buy one of those packages of yeast in the store, it's nothing but yeast. It doesn't have the bacteria, which makes sourdough start.
And those are also completely different strains. The store-bought yeast is
store-bought-
a lot more active, a lot quicker than real sourdough.
Store-bought yeast will raise your bread in 2 hours. Sourdough start will raise it overnight. Now what happens is, if you have a sensitivity for gluten, what happens is the sourdough start will start out, is it, Linda, is it 20,000 parts per million
I
gluten?
don't remember, ask Kyle.
And
75,000 parts per million.
75,000 parts per million gluten, which is very high. But if you let it ferment overnight, it goes down to about 75 parts per million. 12 parts per million. Okay.
A study that was done in Italy.
About,
And
okay,
so
that's
it's almost completely gone.
over 8 to 12 hours. It just, so there's almost no gluten in it. A person with gluten sensitivity can eat that stuff.
I've got, oh, never
But
mind.
if you eat bread from the store, that's been raised in 2 hours, and your gluten content has gone down about that much, and you still got almost all that gluten in the bread. And that's why we make our bread that way, because that's the way bread used to be. That's the way the bread is supposed to be. Okay, I'm waiting for some cat calls here because you're not as obnoxious
We're more
as the
polite
folks
than
in
Manti.
Manti. I'm waiting for obnoxious. Yes, you're all right.
This is non-obnoxious, okay?
Okay,
It's just a restricted. So the jerky that you gave out tonight, it seemed like it was almost done in like a freeze dryer. It was extremely dry.
it was extremely dry, and that's because they gave me really thin beef, and I didn't know it. And I kept it in a bit too long.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if you froze dry it? Or can you freeze dry it and get the same?
If you freeze dry beef, you'll also freeze dry the fat in the beef. And so you need to use those oxygen absorbers.
Besides, it'll be raw.
Yeah, it'll be raw. You usually when you freeze dry meat, it needs to be pre-cooked.
Okay.
Well, this isn't really cooked, it's just dried.
It's dried. Yeah, this is not cooked.
It's been
Oh, so-
overheat, it doesn't overheat though. It's been in heat.
Yeah,
for a long time.
the heat does kill the bacteria. If you slow cook like a pork roast, you can cook it at like 140 degrees. It just takes all day.
No self-respecting bacterium would dare reproduce on one of these.
Well, the salt and the nitrates also get the bacteria.
They don't
Also,
like salt.
cooking over low heat for a long period of time does cook it. With freeze dry, you're freezing it. It's not cooked at all.
There's a certain amount of cooking involved, but it's really not cooked per se.
Can you put it in, containers that you can vacuum pack for storage?
I don't know, I've never done it.
The enzymes are typically killed between 115 and 118 degrees, and that's what causes the deterioration of the meat. That's what makes it, quote, go rotten. And so if you're at 120 to 180
Yeah.
degrees, you're killing any of the enzymes that's gonna cause the breakdown of the meat.
So I've got mine set at 120 degrees, and that's what I do it at.
And how do you like this style of dehydrator? I've heard
Eh.
good things about them.
Any style will do. We've actually got 4 dehydrators in our house. This is the one I got probably in the 1980s. And it's the one I use for meat, because it's got all the meat ick on it, and I don't dare use
seasoned.
Linda's good dryers for that. She dries other things with hers, but there are more sophisticated air dryers if you feel the need. Just make sure that it can be set at 120 degrees and it has a drip pan.
Okay, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and along this, you don't even have to have like a commercial dryer. if you've got like a big black drum and you've got some glass, if it's in the summer, you can just build a solar box where you just take the meat outside and let the sun cook it.
Or you could do what Bigfoot did. Kyle didn't see the Bigfoot video. Kyle came in late. Let's play the Bigfoot video for
That was
Kyle.
my
Oh,
question,
boy.
is, options for